So when people see my pin, they say, "You're the guy who bought the Sears Tower." I said to myself, there's two answers to this. The short answer or the long answer. Who's got time for the long answer? So I said, yeah, I did. 2009, February, you remember the economy. 80% occupied, 20% vacant. I go see the owner. I said, listen, I'm looking for 250,000 square feet. He says to me, I got it. I got the space. I said, I know you do. You got 20% vacancy here. I said, I'm interested in space. He says, $35 a square foot is the average. I'll give it to you for 30. I said, well, I was thinking of something else. He said, well, how much? I said, $10. He says, you insult me. I walked away. I went 5 feet. He said, how about 20? I said, I better keep walking. I can get this sucker down. Finally, we decide on $14.50 a square foot. He says, do we have a deal now? I said, not necessarily. He said, what do you want now? I said, the problem with the building is it's a jinx. I said, nobody wants to renew their lease there because they think it's the next tower to be attacked. I said, you change the name of the building, you change the whole concept of what that building represents. Positive, optimistic, a building of dreams, not memories. He said, well, what should that name be?
Good morning and welcome to the first broadcast of RISKSATV on day one of the 2012 Insurance Conference at Sun City. I'm Hannah Barry, and joining me this morning is the guest of honor and keynote speaker at this year's conference, Willis Group Holdings CEO, Joe Plumeri. Joe, thanks for joining us here this morning and welcome to South Africa.
My pleasure, Hannah. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Good. You're addressing delegates tomorrow morning on some of the global issues affecting the insurance industry as a whole, and you list regulation as one of the top 10 risks facing the insurance sector. Do you think that insurers have been sort of caught up in what's a knee-jerk reaction to the subprime crisis of '08, which really had nothing to do with the insurance sector at all?
I think regulation is something that's here to stay. Whether it's gotten caught up in the issues of the last 3 or 4 years or not is really secondary. The fact of the matter is that we're in a world of regulation. We're in a world of compliance. We're in a world of transparency, where basically clients and people we deal with want to know what we're doing, how we're doing it, and feel comfortable with our industry. And I think that's very important because our industry has been extremely resilient over the last 3 years. Over 300 banks in the world have failed. Lots of industries have failed. But the one industry, especially financial industry, that has been very resilient is the insurance industry. And I think it's important. We've been paying claims. We've been underwriting. Nothing has been disturbed over that period of time. We need to be very proud of that. And inside that pride needs to be a sense that people need to know that not only are we resilient, not only are we transparent, but we're an industry that makes people feel that we're going to be there when they need us. And especially with the world growing as it is here, that it's really important that we make people feel good about the fact that we're there to help them grow and help them protect that growth.
And you do make the point that the insurance industry needs to reposition itself globally as a leader on resilience and really establish resilience as an aspirational purchase. What does this look like?
Well, I think that's important because if we've learned anything over the last 10 years, there's been disaster after disaster after disaster. The old idea of an insurance transaction, which is one that I have to make because something bad might happen. And if something bad happens, then I got to replace that with the claim that I put in with the insurance company that replaces it. I really now has to be rethought, because when you've had tsunamis and you've had earthquakes and you've had tornadoes and you've had all sorts of natural disasters and man-made disasters. You got to remember, the economic depression was man-made, which has had reputational risk, financial risk associated with it. You're in a different world. And people like myself, companies, have to ask themselves, are they going to be around 5 years from now? Are they going to be around 10 years from now? Who are the advisors who sit down with them and look through their risks, look through their balance sheets, look through the growth of their business, and ask them if they're going to be resilient or they're going to be sustainable over that period of time? So it seems to me that we have an ability to be able to lead that discussion, which really transforms the industry from one that's transactional to one that now addresses and advises and consults about the future of the world. And that's a wonderful place to be in, I think.
You mentioned the financial crisis, man-made and natural. We know that last year was the costliest year on record for natural catastrophes. Has this impacted the ability of big reinsurers to pay future claims?
Well, that's what's interesting about our industry. You had $300 billion of economic loss. You had $100 billion of insured loss. And yet the industry is still going strong. It has lots of capacity. It's being run very well on a worldwide basis. There are some interruptions with regard to that. Because of the disasters, the claims have been higher. And insurance companies, from a P&L point of view, are run by looking at the combined ratios of their businesses, which is the total amount of claims and the cost of doing business against the premium coming in, and then that's offset by the investment income. The investment income has been very small because interest rates have been lower on a worldwide basis. So you have the economics of running a business that have been very difficult. But having said all of that, the capacity is huge, has been able to be resilient itself against the backdrop of $100 billion of insured claims that have been paid, which is amazing. And I don't think anybody has a sense of pride or a sense of excitement about the fact that we're in an industry that stands very tall in being able to protect the world, and not only protect it, but after the disaster happens, which to me is more important, is the reparation that goes afterwards. This industry has rebuilt countries, it's rebuilt cities. New Orleans exists today because of the insurance industry, not because of the United States government. Lives, communities, everything we do is about repairing and rebuilding. And so you don't look at it from the point of view of the disaster or the problem. I look at it from the point of view of the recovery. And insurance is about recovery.
And on the sort of note of recovery, where are reinsurers and insurers looking for growth in what have become very interesting financial times? And do you think these reserves are sufficient to withstand the onslaught?
I think that the reserves are more than sufficient. I think even with Solvency II, which suggests that you got to keep some of your capacity in reserve, basically is what that means, you still have enough to go around. And you got to remember that from an investment point of view, there's lots of money on the sidelines that I think are willing to invest, in this industry because of its resilience. So if you look at it that way, you have a very positive future, both in reinsurance and insurance. As to where that should be, we're standing in it. I mean, right here in South Africa and the African continent in general, I think is going to be one of the fastest growing places for industry in the world. And if you're going to have a rising middle class over the next 50 years, which is what the projection is, then to have a middle class, they have to have jobs, or there is no middle class. And if they have jobs, that means there's industry. And if there's industry, that means that industry has to be protected and insured. They have to be resilient. Somebody's got to be able to provide all of that. That's the insurance industry. So I don't think that we've had the golden age of insurance yet, even in the world, let alone in South Africa or Africa in general.
And we believe absolutely at Risk SA in sort of the future of South Africa and Africa, which is why we are standing in front of a very mean-looking Land Rover called Mad Max that will be taking the Risk Africa team on a trip through 6 African countries, including South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Mozambique in just 10 days' time. The trip is called the Put Foot Rally and aims to raise funds for social upliftment in Southern Africa, as well as awareness around rhino poaching. Now, while our boys will definitely be going off-road, virtually the entire trip would be possible without leaving a tar road. And this is thanks in large part. It is amazing.
I've never been in anything but a tar road. That's amazing.
Well, especially in what's known as the Dark Continent.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and this...
yeah. If there's any part of the trip you want me on, I'll be available to raise funds.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure,
you can meet up with the guys on any leg of the trip.
Absolutely. I'm multitasked. It's not a problem.
That's brilliant. And one of our guys is camping on the stand to raise funds for this very cause at the insurance conference, our marketing director, Mike Kaufman. So you can pledge for every hour that he's on the stand, 10 Rand or 10,000 Rand.
What would you expect to be a decent pledge for this trip?
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
Well, if we're talking US dollars here.
Yeah. How much?
Perhaps $1,000 an hour?
$1,000 an hour. It's a very expensive trip. It's very expensive gasoline.
Okay.
Very expensive.
Well, you must know the price of fuel in South Africa and Africa has skyrocketed, and a beast like that consumes an awful lot of fuel.
I want you to know that because this is being kicked off now in this show, right? This
Yes, sort of
you're kicking it off right now.
At the conference.
So, and have you had any contributions yet?
We have had contributions. We actually had one of the insurers, the local insurers who's here, has pledged, I think, 4,000 Rand, but they actually dared our boys to run a night run in Johannesburg on Thursday night in Speedos, which they did, and in exchange they got 4,000 Rand for the rally, and we have raised some more. We only just sort of kicked it off a few days ago on our website. So, but...
Well, it's a great cause, and I want to make sure everybody participates in this cause, so that I don't want this interview to go by without me saying that Willis endorses this, and
Great.
Willis will make a contribution.
Brilliant. We appreciate that.
I don't want to announce what the contribution is.
That's
because if I say it's too small, they'll say Willis is cheap. If I say it's too much, people will say they gave so much money, they make a lot, and that's not good. So I want you to know we'll make a contribution.
Fantastic.
I have to get the advice of my local people to see
That's
how
brilliant.
much it's going to be.
Brilliant. And talking of tar roads and dirt roads, the reason why there's so many tar roads in Africa, well, a big part of the reason is that the Chinese have, really are developing a lot on the African continent, from dams to roads to schools to power stations. They're here in nearly every country. And I would like to know from you, what do they and Willis know that perhaps slower off the mark companies do not?
Well, it's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
If you look at the world population, I think that the world population is moving away from developed countries to developing countries. And developing can be defined in a lot of ways. Africans both developed and developing at the same time. So if you're looking to invest your money, you're looking to invest it in places where you think that there's a future. And everybody in the world thinks that there's a future here because of the natural resources that exist and because of the sense of entrepreneurialism that exists. And so as a result, and if you look at the population explosion and you look to see the investment taking place and you look at the middle class and all the things I said earlier, that's why the investment, is coming here. So if you're in the risk business, if you're in the insurance business, which to me is the best business you can be in, because you cannot have a business unless you protect it. Everything that we see here, even everything behind us in this backdrop, is insured. It was insured where it was manufactured. That truck is insured. I'm not sure about the camp or the person
bale.
in the camp. But what's great about the business, and I tell everybody that, is that we're in a business where everybody basically has to be able to have what we what we provide, which is a sense of protection. And when you're in a business like that, it's very, very exciting. So you got to go to where the growth will be, and that's why there's so much investment coming into to South Africa and Africa in general. So you got to be excited to be here, and you got to be excited about the future that's here. And as we are at Willis, to be excited about participating in it. It's just fantastic. And of all the conventions that I have spoken at, and I've been privileged to be involved with, this one excites me the most because you're kind of on the verge of something really spectacular.
Has Willis found it challenging or difficult, and how hard is it to facilitate business in emerging markets?
It's not hard as much as you have to stand back and have a vision for how big the place is going to be, how you want to participate in it, and what your role will be, so you can make an impact. To be in business is one thing. To make an impact in that business is another thing. Yeah. So you have an opportunity to not only be here and to be in business and to take advantage of it, but also to figure out what your role is to contribute back to what you're able to grow out of it. Because in any operation, any place in the world, the community gives you the ability to be able to participate. When you participate and you grow and you're successful, what you want to be able to do is give some more back so that it can grow some more. Yeah. And that's the way we want to participate here.
Brilliant. So the story for Africa, the growth story for Africa, is a positive one.
Oh, it's as positive as I'm lucky enough to be the CEO of a global company. So I go every place. And if anybody's got the ability to be able to see the growth patterns in different parts of the world, it's me. And not because I'm here, but when you look at the future and you look at where you can develop a future, where you have a sense of a foothold already, but it's still emerging and it's still developing, and it's building on top of what already it has. It's just absolutely amazing. So that everybody here, I would tell, they should not only have a sense of excitement about the future, but a sense of pride about being, in South Africa. It's just fantastic.
Brilliant. So a positive story for the local insurance industry as well as the continental insurance industry. Joe, thank you so much for joining us this morning on RISKSATV, and we hope you enjoy the conference as well as your time in South Africa, and that at the end of it, you love South Africa just as much as we do.
I want to tell you, if I love it anymore at the end, they're going to have to take me out of here in some sort of a stretcher, because it's been so exciting already, right. And I can't wait for the conference to begin.
That's what we like to hear. It's day one of the 2012 Insurance Conference. I'm Hannah Barry, and this is RISKSATV, the face of the industry, together with Joe Plumeri, who I'm now going to give a copy of our magazine to.
This I want you to know. I have been to many conventions and I have given many keynote speeches. But this is the thickest of all of the magazines that I have ever had the pleasure of being able to. So I want everybody to see this magazine. It's beautiful, has risk essay on it. Welcome to the Insurance Conference 2012. And inside is a wonderful profile on me.